Ready and waiting. New details in the impeachment of President Donald Trump, including what the White House says about House Democrats' delays. The verdict is in. An update on the murder case of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Christmas at the Vatican. A close-up look at the nativity scene at St. Peter's Square. And a real gift. We'll introduce you to the most in-demand Santa Claus in the United States on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, December 23rd, 2019. Good evening from Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Jason Calvi. The impeachment process goes on Christmas break. Congress is home for the holidays, and Speaker Pelosi hasn't sent the articles of impeachment to the Senate. That's because Democrats are fighting Republicans on how to run the Senate trial. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell now says he's not ruling out calling witnesses. President Trump calls the delay unfair. President Trump vacations in Florida and blasts the House impeachment vote.
They are violating the Constitution, totally. They're violating the Constitution.
But it's on hold. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hasn't sent the articles of impeachment to the Senate.
It's so unfair. She has no case.
Newly released government documents reveal a new timeline on the case at the center of Democrats' impeachment push, when the White House ordered the holding up of aid to Ukraine. The documents reveal it was less than 2 hours after President Trump's July phone call with Ukraine's president.
Until we hear from the witnesses, until we get the documents, the American people will correctly assume that those blocking their testimony were aiding and abetting a cover-up.
Speaker Pelosi urges Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to agree to Democratic proposals for the Senate trial. But for now, she holds the articles of impeachment the House passed last week.
The yeas are 230, the nays are 197, present is 1.
And the one House Democrat who voted present says she's sending a message. Tulsi Gabbard is also running for president.
My present vote was not passive. It was an active protest against the terrible fallout of this zero-sum mindset that the two opposing political parties have trapped America in. There's no winning here. Everyone is losing.
Senators wait to cast their own votes. And vulnerable Alabama Democrat Doug Jones says he's open-minded about his impeachment vote. Staying with the Democrats, one of the leading Latinos in Congress endorses Joe Biden for president.
He has a lifetime of service. He loves to be in service, and he's been doing it wonderfully as a senator, as vice president of the United States, and he's been doing it for a long time.
California's Tony Cardenas leads the political arm of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Biden is pitching his long career in the Senate and 2 terms as vice president to try and gain endorsements from a wide range of Democrats. A Saudi Arabian court sentences 5 people to death for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi criticized the kingdom's ruling family and crown prince. He was killed in 2018. Prosecutors say they investigated a former royal court advisor, but they found no evidence he played a role in the murder. The main opposition party in India keeps protesting the country's new citizenship law. Tens of thousands rally against the measure. They say it's an attempt to marginalize the country's 200 million Muslims. Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday defended the law. He also accused the opposition party of using fair tactics to stop it. Israel will allow Gaza Strip Christians to travel to Jerusalem for Christmas. It had been unclear whether Israel would issue travel permits to the roughly 1,000 Christians living in Gaza. The territory is under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade, and residents need the permits to leave. Pope Francis meets children.
Non capisco. Non c'era scritto guerra.
The group treated him to a musical show with songs and dances. The Holy Father said children are the promise of a very good future, and he encouraged them to never give up on hope, love, and peace. Pope Francis makes changes at the Vatican. He says it's to the better share the gospel in an increasingly secular world.
Più in un regime di cristianità perché la fede, specialmente in questo accorpamento.
The Pope met Saturday with the Roman Curia, the church leaders in Rome who helped the Pope. Pope Francis says it's healthy to allow ourselves to be questioned by challenges. He adds the Holy See will do so with courage rather than leaving everything as it is. The Holy Father has made several changes to Vatican departments in recent years. Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican analyst for Catholic News Agency, joins us from Rome. Andrea, what is the significance of the Holy Father's message to the Roman Curia?
Well, the Pope has a message, a Christmas message to the Curia every year. So it's very significant because Pope Francis always used this message to deliver some message, obviously, to the Curia for what he wants to do. First year was about the melodies of the Curia. Second year was about the remedies to the melodies to the Curia. This year was mostly about reforms. Pope Francis said that reforms are there to stay. He warned from rigidity. He said that one must not be rigid. He also tried to console people, explaining that no one thought that reform was going to be there without thinking about what they did before. But it was quite significant because it previews that this is a year that will have a lot of changes for the Holy See and in terms of reforms, especially for dicastery for evangelization that will be renewed, and for the dicastery for the Congregation of the Faith that will be renewed as well, as Pope Francis mentioned.
And I know Pope Francis also announced another big change at the Vatican. What was that?
Well, Pope Francis announced that the Dean of Cardinals will be a 5-term mandate and not a forever mandate as it was before. Cardinal Sodano, that has been the Dean of Cardinals, resigned after 13 years. And so now the Cardinals will have to elect a new Dean. What does the Dean do? It's kind of particular. The Dean is the first among equals of the Cardinals, is elected among the Cardinals' bishops. Cardinals have ranks. All of cardinals are archbishops, but not all of cardinals have the same dignity. And this dates back to the first centuries of the church. So there are cardinals deacons, cardinals priests, and cardinals bishops. And just the cardinals bishops, that are just a few, Pope Francis expanded them, but mostly they're the cardinals that are linked to diocese suburbicarian to the Diocese of Rome, they will elect a new dean.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's very interesting. And then looking ahead, what will be the Pope's schedule for the rest of this Christmas week?
Well, it's a traditional schedule, so Pope Francis will have the Mass on Christmas Eve. It's a Mass that is attended always by the diplomatic corps of the Vatican, and it's even a Mass during which the Vatican unveils the nativity scene within St. Peter's Basilica. There is one in St. Peter's Square, and there is another one within St. Peter's Basilica. Then there will be the message Urbi et Orbi on the 25th, the day of Christmas. Urbi et Orbi means to the city of Rome, and to the world. It's generally a diplomatic message. The Pope just lists the scenarios the Holy See is interested in all over the world. And so he will deliver this message. Then there will be the Te Deum. It's the hymn, thanks to God, on the 31st, the Mass on January the 1st, and the Mass on January the 6th.
Okay, the Feast of the Epiphany. Andrea Gagliarducci, Vatican analyst for Catholic News Agency. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, analysis of how more than half of the state capitals now have nativity scenes. And a look at the Vatican's own Christmas crèche. Nativity scenes take center stage at more than half of the nation's state capitals, just in time for Christians to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Christmas crèches are on display across the country, including these from Ohio, North Dakota, and Minnesota. The Thomas More Society teams up with another group called the American Nativity Scene. This year, 6 states added nativity scenes to their capital grounds. That marks the largest number added since they launched the campaign in 2012. Joining me now to talk about this is Thomas Olp, Vice President and Senior Counsel for the Thomas More Society. Thomas, you've described this as a landmark year. What do you think is behind this growth in nativity scene displays across the country?
Well, I think that we've been at this for about 10 years, and we've seen growth every year. So I think it's, and we try to publicize what we're doing, so we're seeing a good reaction to it. The idea of public citizens making Christmas meaningful by having a nativity display, I think is sparking in the minds of a lot of the of religious people here in this country.
And you're in various states across the country. What's been the reaction in many of those states?
Well, most people react very positively, and we don't really have legal issues to deal with usually. Mostly people are happy to see that the holiday season has a reminder as to what it really is, which is the Christmas season, a celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ.
So you're putting a lot of effort into getting these into state capitals around the country and on property either outside or inside of state capitals. So why is that so important for you then to keep these privately funded nativity scenes in the public square?
Well, the basic principle that underlies our work here is that religious speech we think is important to be prominent in the public square. We don't want a public square that's stripped of religion and religious expression. We're a religious people, and it's important for people to appreciate that religious speech is a net contribution to our civic life. And so putting a nativity scene in a rotunda, a Capitol building, a public building, serves to remind people that religion is part of our civic life and should be.
But what would you say to those who disagree with these displays and say it's a violation of the Constitution?
We explain to people, there are people who believe that, and we try to help them understand that it is not a violation of the Constitution. The public square in this country is available to all kinds of speech, and political speech and all kinds of expression, and religious expression is one form of speech. So the basic principle is non-discrimination between and among forms of speech. Once people hear that message, then they say, yeah, that makes sense to us. And we rarely have legal problems with running interference with the American nativity scene who we work with. Mostly it's an educational challenge to us.
So besides the educational process or the educational getting this message out there, though, you do have some legal battles ahead. There's some atheist groups that do not like to see these displays on public property. So you do have to fight some of these people in court. Am I right on that?
Well, when atheists see Christian displays, they say, hey, what about us? And so they can take two different tacks. They can say, oh, well, we want the religious speech out of the public square, or they can add their own speech. And the proper response that they should take is to add their own speech. Free speech is part of a very basic and important part of our democracy here in the United States. So even people who are against religion appreciate the principle at stake here.
Okay, Thomas Olp, Vice President and Senior Counsel for the Thomas More Society. Thank you so much and Merry Christmas.
Thank you for having me.
And the Vatican's nativity scene lights up the center of St. Peter's Square. It's handcrafted and donated. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Alan Holdren shares with us the story behind this year's display.
Christmas season is upon the Vatican, and the nativity scene shines at the center of St. Peter's Square in its full splendor. It's a long-standing tradition that different cities and countries offer their decorations to the Vatican. The vice mayor of the city, Lorenza Ropelato, says that it's a dream come true to install the Scurelle nativity scene in St. Peter's Square.
It is a pride for our land, for our community of Scurelle, for the whole of Valsugana and of Trentino. This is a nativity scene of Trentino that this year became the nativity scene of the world.
The nativity is made up almost entirely of wood and reflects the typical Trento tradition from the early 20th century.
We have several characters, such as the cromero, which is the one in front of the nativity scene on the left. The cromero was a figure who, at the beginning of the 20th century, set out from the mountain villages, when there was still a lot of misery, and went around Europe to sell religious prints, seeds, and many other things of the local craftsmanship, carrying them in a suitcase on his shoulder in which he kept all the merchandise.
The Trentino community also met with Pope Francis and built a smaller nativity scene just for him. The Holy Father mentioned the storm that hit northern Italy last year and devastated many forested areas and towns. Remains of the storm were incorporated into the Vatican's nativity scene.
Today's meeting offers me the opportunity to renew my encouragement to your people, who last year suffered a devastating natural disaster with the destruction of an entire wooded area. These are events that alarm us. They are warning signs that creation sends us and that asks us to take effective decisions immediately for the protection of our common home.
So the call of Pope Francis was precisely to this devastation. The tree, he then said, becomes a symbol of hope for these territories to rise again. Within the nativity scene, upturned stumps were used in memory of the devastation of Aya. It is a symbol of poverty and misery with which the nativity scene of Bethlehem was born.
The main nativity scene of the year was illuminated on December the 5th and will remain on display for pilgrims until the feast of Christ's baptism on January the 12th, 2020.
Up next, we'll introduce you to a Santa who has a real gift. Finally tonight, it's 2 days before Christmas, and to help get us in the mood, EWTN contributor Colm Flynn introduces us to a man well suited to be Santa Claus.
Saint Nicholas was a bishop who lived in the 3rd century and was famous for his generosity towards the poor and his love of children. Stories that he would secretly leave money and gifts in the homes of the poor during the night inspired the character of Santa Claus that we now know all over the world today, including the Santa.
Since St. Nicholas, there have been hundreds, almost thousands of Santas in different countries and different parts of the world. We're all following what Nicholas taught us, what he had learned in his teachings from Christ about secret giving. And that's what we do. We do the secret giving. So all of these different Santas help out.
And Santa, I was told by a little elf that your real name, Tim Conahan.
Timothy Patrick Conahan.
Timothy
yes.
Patrick Conahan, so a good Irish name.
Oh, yes.
Tim Patrick Conahan is the most in-demand Santa in the United States. And for decades, he's become a favorite of Hollywood.
There's only one Santa Claus, and there he is.
He is the real deal.
I'm one of 11 children, so a nice, large Irish Catholic family.
Was Santa a big deal in the family growing up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Always. You know, my mom and dad were fantastic people. You know, we're just an average family, but they always took great care of us.
Tim first became Santa in 1968 in a place you would never have imagined.
Remember Christ our Savior was born on Christmas Day.
It was the height of the Vietnam War, and Tim had enlisted in the army. He was deployed to Vietnam for 1 year.
I was actually on an armored personnel carrier that hit an IED and was, you know, blown off, you know, that type of thing. You know, so I went through a lot of stuff. But one of the unique parts of all of that experience was December 23rd, 1969.
It was 2 days until Christmas, and with the troops feeling homesick, Tim had an idea to cheer them up. He took a can of shaving foam and put it on his face, pretending to be Santa. And as you said, Vietnam, you know, huge combat, and for a moment with Santa Claus, it reminds them of their childhood. It takes them away from the reality they're in.
I'm sure this is what it was. You know, we all knew that these are pictures going home to our loved ones. And sometimes we were taking pictures holding the gift that they had sent to us. You know, saying, hey, Mom, I got the socks, or hey, Mom, I got your tin of cookies. That was a lot of fun.
When Tim returned to the US, he started working in broadcasting for a country and western station in Bakersfield, California, where his acting really started.
I was the morning disc jockey, country western, and I was Tumbleweed. Hi friends, Tumbleweed here. Here's Merle Haggard. And then we'd come back from the song and I'd say, that was our good friend Merle Haggard, and right now it's time to go to the news, and here's Tim Conahan. Thank you, Tumbleweed. Looking at the news in Kirk County.
Did people know it was the same person?
People didn't know it was the same person. Yeah.
Wow.
A local shopping mall heard him on the radio and liked his personality, so they asked him to be their Santa.
What was it like when you were sitting there as Santa Claus? Was it something that came naturally?
It did seem natural. It's not this beard and the whiteness or anything. It's not the shape of the body or even this red suit. It's what's in your heart. Because the children in their own mind create the magic.
The years rolled on and Tim would be Santa every Christmas. And when he retired from his day job, he took it up full time and became a showbiz Santa, even being the star attraction at the Hollywood Christmas parade.
Because the children are smart. They see that Santa on TV and they can tell you whether he's real or not.
Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to the 88th Annual Hollywood Christmas Parade.
Happy holidays!
But there's a serious side to this Santa too, and when he's not in front of the lights and the cameras of glittery Hollywood, he's doing things like this, visiting the Hassenfeld Children's Hospital in Manhattan.
Dear Santa, River and Alden have been very, very good this year. I have been a good listener and taking good care of my brothers by watching out for him and taking care of him.
And I see in big letters, light up sneakers?
Yeah.
You like those, huh? You want the ones that just kind of blink a little bit or a lot?
A lot.
A lot. Oh, that's important. That's important. And I love the last part here. You said thank you. And I do appreciate that. That's very courteous. Thank you, Santa. That is so wonderful.
Tim spends hours meeting as many children as he can, trying to bring a little bit of the magic of Christmas to the children and their families. They come from their rooms down to a special studio in the hospital where, as part of the Heart Project, they have their picture taken with Santa, and through the wonders of editing, the pictures are transformed into beautiful Christmas scenes that the families can take home. And for the children who are too sick to come down, Santa, of course, will go to them.
Has Mommy been a good girl?
Huh?
Mommy been a good girl?
Mommy been a good girl?
Yeah.
Oh, yay. That is great. Every year there are children who come to Santa. They've been told Santa grants a wish. It's a sister, a brother, a mother, somebody who's very sick, and they want you to cure their illness, and you can't do it. But you have to let the children know that you heard what they said, that they're loved, and hopefully when they leave, they've felt a burden lifted. It's not easy. You gotta get a hug from Santa.
Mommy gets a hug from Santa?
Oh, gosh,
Mommy
yes.
gets a hug from Santa.
Yes,
Look at
okay.
all.
God bless you, my dear.
Do you still enjoy it? You've been doing it for so long now, Santa Tim. Do you still love being Santa Claus?
Well, the magic is always there. So we celebrate these traditions and this giving and this love of other people. And that's what Christmas is really all about. As I say, it's not the beard, it's not the suit, it's what's in your heart.
Wow, what an amazing story and an amazing heart. And we wish you all a blessed and holy Christmas. EWTN will broadcast special shows tomorrow, Christmas Eve, as well as Christmas Day. That means we'll be back Thursday. I'm Jason Calvi, and from all of us at EWTN News Nightly, good night and God bless.